So hello friends, welcome to the Anatomy Hub. Today we will study about the anterior abdominal wall. The abdomen, that is actually the region of trunk between the thorax and the pelvis, contains the largest portion of the abdominopelvic cavity, right? That you can observe over here. So here you'll find a peritoneal lined space that it shares with the pelvis. The abdomen that you'll find over here that houses the primary organs of the gastrointestinal and urinary system. Although some abdominal viscera, that is the small intestine, that is typically overflow the boundaries of the abdomen to occupy the pelvic space also, and the pelvic viscera when they distended to downward, that is the bladder and the uterus, that can extend superiorly towards the abdominal area into the abdomen, you can say. So the abdominal wall that you will find over here, that is actually composed of the skin, fascia and muscles, and that is supported by its attachment to the ribs above that, and towards the lumbar vertebra and to the bony pelvis, right? So it moves and stabilizes the trunk and supports the abdominal viscera that will find inside this abdominal cavity, and it creates the intra-abdominal pressure that is actually crucial in digestion and the respiration. So the muscular abdominal wall that you'll find over here, that provides little protection for underlying viscera, but it is much of the upper abdominal viscera that lie under the dome of this diaphragm that you'll find over here, where they are protected by the thoracic skeleton, and the bony pelvis that you'll find over here, that protects most viscera in the lower abdomen. In mid-sagittal section, that pelvis that is actually viewed from the left side, uh, uh, and the peritoneal cavity and the peritoneum that is shown in red color, that you can observe over here. So to study about the anterior abdominal wall, why it is important? Because clinically so many things are there with the anterior abdominal wall during the surgery, during the palpation, during the percussion, everything. So this abdominal wall that has a number of important functions, both protecting and containing the abdominal viscera. The muscles are able to contract and increasing the intra-abdominal pressure, aiding the expiration, coughing and vomiting. Here we will discuss about the surface anatomy first, how this abdominal area, the anterior abdominal wall, that will helpful. So in order to describe the location of the abdominal viscera, we divide the abdomen into four quadrants or 9 regions, right? So here you'll see the four quadrants, uh, that is a vertical line and a transverse line. So we'll take the reference using the vertical reference line and the standard transverse plane, you can say. So here you'll find a line that you can observe over here, that passes through the find a line that you can observe over here that passes through the umbilicus over here. So here the another line that is passes through the Gifford process towards the symphysis pubis. So in this way we can divide the anterior abdominal wall into four quadrants, that is your right upper quadrant and left upper quadrant, left lower quadrant and the right lower quadrant. Uh, the and this anterior abdominal wall that may be divided into 9 regions also by the transpyloric plane and the tubercular plane that will here you can see the transpyloric plane that is that will found over here that is actually the plane measured halfway between the jugular notch that you'll find over here and the pubic crest. In between these two, the halfway is your transpyloric line. And this line actually it is useful in the horizontal plane that actually provides orientation to the internal anatomy of the abdomen that we'll see in our next picture. And here it actually passes the L1 vertebra. So you can say the L1 plane that passes through this line, and means you will find the you can see another line, and that is your transtubercular line that is from the iliac tubercle to the opposite side of the iliac tubercle. We will draw another line, and here you will find another line that is the two mid clavicular line that you can find over here that descends vertically down and that passes down from the midpoint of the clavicle towards the inguinal point. You can say the mid inguinal point, and the subcostal plane, or you can say the transverse line, or you can say the transpyloric line that you'll find over here. Transverse line, or you can say the transpyloric line that you'll find over here. So this line that passes across the abdomen at the level of the inferior aspect of the 10th intercostal space, or you can say the 10th costal cartilage, and this line that bisects the third lumbar vertebra. Okay, so here you will find the transtubercular plane that is found over here that passes in between the iliac tubercles, and these are located approximately 5 cm superior to the anterior superior iliac spine or fifth lumbar vertebra. Means you'll find the fifth lumbar vertebra will be corresponding to this tubercular line. So here you'll find that in this way you can divide this anterior abdominal wall into 9 quadrants, and they are mainly the epigastric region, the umbilical region and the pubic region. Okay. Then here you'll find there is your right hypochondriac region. So this is hypochondrium. Hypo means below, chondrium means cartilage. So it is a hypochondrium. So it is your right hypochondrium and it will be your left hypochondrium. And this is actually the you can say the inguinal region. That's why here right side you will find the right inguinal region and left side you will find the left inguinal region, and in between this hypochondrium and the inguinal region here you will find the kidney. Okay, and actually it is the lumbar region over here. So this is left side, so this is your left lumbar region and this will be your right lumbar region, right? Okay, so here we'll find why we are studying these nine, because here you'll find that the pylorus part of the stomach that you'll find over here, the ampulla of the duodenum will also find over here at the transpyloric plane, right? So this is your transpyloric plane. Okay, so here you'll find the pylorus part of the stomach, the ampulla of the duodenum, the celiac trunk, the superior mesenteric artery, right? And the origin of your portal vein over here, and the neck of the pancreas, and the left colic flexor of your large intestine, right? So this right, that lie on the transpyloric plane, that is L1 vertebra, pancreatic neck, pylorus of the stomach, first part of the duodenum, duodenojejunal flexor that you find over here. Okay, and fundus of the gallbladder and the renal hyla. Okay, or you can say the hilum of the kidney, right? Okay, so here we'll see that the skin and soft tissue, they are the actually most superficial layer, outer layer of the anterior abdominal wall that you'll find here. So here you'll find the skin over here, and just if you'll peel up the skin you'll find here is a superficial layer. Okay, so this superficial fascia that lies deep to the skin and the superficial to the muscular layer. Okay, and it has two components, right? That is the superficial fatty layer that you'll find here. So this is superficial fatty layer, otherwise known as your Kemper's fascia, and you'll find here the deep layer, right? So the deep layer is your Scarpa's fascia. This is actually membranous fascia, right? So superficial you'll find the fatty layer. Okay, that is the Kemper's fascia, and deep to that you'll find the membranous layer, that is the Scarpa's fascia. So this Kemper's fascia, that is actually subcutaneous layer of fat whose thickness varies among the individuals, and that is continuous with the superficial fascia of your thorax region, back region, and the lower limb also, right? So here you'll find a deep membranous layer, right? So this deep membranous layer means that is just below to the Kemper's fascia. You'll find the Scarpa's fascia, right? So this is your Scarpa's fascia. So this Scarpa's fascia, the deep membranous layer, that is actually tough fibrous layer, and the seat of fibrous tissue that actually lies deep to the superficial and the superficial fatty layer, and that covers the lower anterior abdominal wall and extends inferiorly into the superficial perineal fascia. Okay, that is a third fatty layer that is actually described, which is situated deep to the Scarpa's layer, and this layer it is seen mostly and clearly in your children, right? So this fascia, it is continuous with the superficial fascia of the trunk superiorly and extends into the genitalia, where in male it is continuous with the Cole's fascia forming the scrotum, right? So here the Cole's fascia, that is actually nothing but the continuation of your Scarpa's fascia towards the superficial perineal fascia. Okay. So after these two layers, so first the skin superficial fascia, that superficial fascia again is two layer, your superficial fatty layer is, or the Kemper's layer, and deep membranous layer or the Scarpa's layer. So after this you will find here the we have removed the skin, we have removed the superficial fascia. Right now we have reached here at the muscular level, or you can say the muscular layer, right? So this muscular layer, that is make up the most of the muscular layer of your the lateral and the anterior abdominal wall, and the external oblique muscle that you will find over here, that actually the most outer layer, and these layers are mainly will find the external and the internal oblique muscle, and the transverse abdominis muscle, right? And the rectus abdominis muscle and the pyramidalis muscle. So all these five muscles that we will study one by one in this video, and in the next video we will study about the vascular supply, the neurovascular bundles that present over here, and how these anterior abdominal wall clinically important, that also we will discuss in our next video. So now we will concentrate only over the muscular part. So this thickened inferior edge of the external oblique aponeurosis that you'll find over here. What is this aponeurosis? This is nothing but the flattened tendon, right? So tendon usually it is tubular in structure, but where the tendon becomes flattened, its name changes to as a aponeurosis, right? So this external oblique muscle that you can see over here, that is actually thickened inferior edge of the external oblique aponeurosis that forms over here the inguinal ligament, which actually attaches laterally to the ASIS, or you can say the anterior superior iliac spine, and medially to the pubic tubercle of the pubis, right? That you can see over here. So some fibers of the medial end of the ligament that reflects downward is the lacunar ligament that you will find over here at this point. Okay, and this lacunar ligament will study detail in our next video, that is the inguinal region. There you will study detail about it, but believe me, this lacunar ligament that is present over here from the pubic tubercle, it is just going towards the pectineal line, the arc-like structure towards the pectineal line, the arc-like structure, that is the lacunar ligament, and it attaches to the superior edge of the pubis. Inferiorly, the aponeurosis of the internal oblique muscle that we'll see in the next image. But before that, we should know the origin and insertion of this external oblique muscle, and from where they are attaching, and where they get the insertion. So these muscles of abdominal wall have multiple functions and they act to protect and contain the abdominal viscera, and they are able to contract and increasing the intra-abdominal pressure, aiding the expiration, coughing and vomiting, and together they help with. So this external oblique muscle, that is the largest and outermost muscle of the anterolateral abdominal wall. Its origin external surface of the 5 to 12th ribs that you'll find over here, and insertion towards the linea alba over here and the pubic tubercle and the anterior half of the iliac crest that you'll find over here. So when this muscle contracts, the lateral flexion uh, occurs and increases the abdominal pressure and maintains the abdominal tone, right? And its vascular supply is the intercostal artery, subcostal artery, and the deep circumflex iliac arteries. So its innervation is by the thoracoabdominal and the. So after this, here you will find the nerve fiber, sorry, the muscle fiber that is going upward obliquely, okay, and uh, so this muscle is the internal oblique muscle. So this internal oblique is the relatively thin sheet of muscles, forms the intermediate layer of the anterolateral abdominal wall. Its origin from the thoracolumbar fascia that we'll find over here, from the iliac crest and from the iliopectineal arch, okay, and mainly the inguinal ligament also that gives origin to this internal oblique muscles, and its insertion that is that goes upward and forward, okay, and attaches to the ninth to 12th, okay, ribs, and ultimately the aponeurosis to the aponeurosis as the high as the seventh costal cartilage alba over here, and it also gives insertion at the pubic crest also, okay. At this point you'll find the pubic crest, right? So its action is the lateral flexion, like your external oblique muscle, and it increases the intra-abdominal pressure, maintain the abdominal tone, and its vascular supply is as usual intercostal artery, subcostal, inferior epigastric, and the deep circumflex celiac artery, and its innervation is from the T to T8 to T11 intercostal muscle, uh, intercostal nerve, and the subcostal ilioinguinal and the iliohypogastric nerves. So after that you'll find over here the rectus abdominis muscle, the gym muscle, muscle, the gym muscle, the so-called uh, abs muscle over here, and this rectus abdominis, that is the paired muscle that you can observe over here, and this is the linea alba over here at the center from the Gifford process to the pubic tubercle, and both the side you will find two strap like rectus means straight, right? So this rectus abdominis is the paired vertical structure running each side of the linea alba, and contain within the rectus sheath, right? So this rectus sheath is nothing but the covering of this uh, rectus abdominis, and it is this sheath is formed by the decussation and the actually the flattened tendon upon the internal oblique. So its origin is at the pubic symphysis and the pubic crest over here, and then it ascends upward and it gives insertion at the Gifford process and the fifth to seventh costal cartilage. Its action is mainly the flexion of the trunk that maintains the abdominal tone, and the vascular supply is by the superior and inferior epigastric arteries. And its innervation is from the T6 to the T11 intercostal nerves, the subcostal and the ilioinguinal nerves. Then here you'll find another muscle, that is a small muscle over here, that is the pyramidalis muscle. So this pyramidalis is small triangular muscle that you'll find over here, that is located part of the rectus abdominis, and its origin is from the pubic symphysis and the pubic crest, and its insertion is to the linea alba. Actually, its action, main action, it gives tension to the linea alba, so that extra support will be given to this anterior abdominal wall. So it is actually supplied by the inferior epigastric artery, and its innervation is by the subcostal nerve. So here you can see the rectus sheath, how the rectus sheath forms. So here you will find the external oblique. So this is the outer layer and this is the inner part, inner layer towards the abdominal cavity. So this is the outer layer and this is the inner part, inner layer towards the abdominal cavity. So here you'll find the skin, the superficial fascia, the Kemper's fascia, the Scarpa's fascia over here. Then you'll find this aponeurosis, this white part that is just coming over here. That is this white part that splits. Actually, the splitting of, you can see here, the external oblique muscle, this aponeurosis is coming, and it splits into two layers by to cover to the rectus sheath. Then it also prevents infection, uh, and here you'll find the internal oblique muscle. Here also it splits into two lamina, the anterior lamina and the posterior lamina, and that merges with this external oblique aponeurosis. And here you'll find the transverse abdominis muscle, it also this aponeurosis, and that forms over here a sheath like structure, that is the rectus sheath over here. So this rectus sheath that encloses the rectus abdominis muscle, that you can observe over here, and the pyramidalis muscles also on either side of the anterior midline. The lateral edge of the sheath, they are actually visible externally as the semilunar lines, and this sheath has anterior and posterior layers that forms by the aponeurosis of the anterolateral muscles as they split to pass around the rectus sheath or rectus muscle. So the arcuate line, that is the inferior end of the posterior layer of the rectus sheath, and inferior to this the aponeurosis may pass anterior to the. So the coronal section with the diaphragm in the intermediate position and the anterior view, that so five muscles that forms the most of the posterior abdominal wall that we have discussed over there. And here this is the lower part of this fascia, where you'll find the all the three layers, they are not splitting to each other, just they are covering the anterior part of your rectus abdominis muscle. So the muscles from the most of the posterior abdominal wall and the psoas major, psoas minor, that and the quadratus lumborum, okay, and iliacs, and so these psoas major and iliacus muscle, they unite to form the iliopsoas muscle, which passes into the thigh and acts on the hip joint. So this thoracic diaphragm that forms the part of the superior portion of the posterior abdominal wall. So this transverse abdominis muscle that contributes to the lateral part of the posterior abdominal wall that we'll discuss over here, that you can see that here you'll find the transverse abdominis muscle. So this muscle actually is the most inner layer of the muscle. So this muscle actually transversely present. So these two transverse abdominis muscle form the innermost layer of muscle of the anterolateral abdominal wall. Its origin from the 7th to 12th ribs, the thoracolumbar fascia, iliac crest, inguinal ligament to 12th ribs, the thoracolumbar fascia, iliac crest, inguinal ligament. Okay, so the insertion to the linea alba, the pubic crest, and the pectineal line, and its action is to increase the intra-abdominal pressure and maintains the abdominal tone. So vascular supply of the intercostal, subcostal, superior and inferior epigastric, superficial and deep circumflex iliac and the posterior lumbar arteries that I have already told you. And its innervation by the T7 to T11 intercostals, subcostal, ilioinguinal and the iliohypogastric nerve. So here you'll find that there is the presence of this is actually bilaminar aponeurosis of the external oblique and the internal oblique and the transverse abdominis from a sheath around the rectus abdominis muscle. So here you'll find that this is the inner layer of your anterior abdominal wall. That what we have discussed is the anterior wall. Here you'll find the inner wall of your anterior abdominal wall. So all the structures that you can find over here that we'll discuss later on in our next video. So here we have completed the only the layers of the anterior abdominal wall that that I have described as the most superficially. The skin will be there, then the Kemper's fascia, Scarpa's fascia over there. Okay, then we'll find the muscle layer, then we'll find the fascia transversalis over there, then we'll find the peritoneum is there, then we'll find the extra peritoneal fat. So all these things about the rest of the vascular supply, the clinical points that we'll discuss in our next video that is coming very soon. So stay tuned. Please like, share, and comment, and give your valuable opinion.